Hi guys, my name's Seb Tudor, I'm the man on the Silver Mountain, and welcome to this month's Month in Review for June 2017. Now, to start off with, we've got some stuff that came out of Vidcon that happened at time of recording last week, and there was there were a collection of things that happened, but there were two kind of instances that really stood out, and this is beyond stupid kids being stupid kids and causing potentially dangerous situations or insulting security or any of that stuff, or outside of the various announcements that were made by YouTube and whatever else. But the one that stood out involved the couple of infamous figures, depending on who you talk to, and that is Anita Sarkeesian and Sargon of Akkad, both prominent semi-political kind of cultural commentator kind of YouTube celebrities of one sort or another, I guess would be the right word to use. And ultimately, you had the Women Online panel where Sargon and a collection of other various YouTubers who have either a kind of cultural commentary or political kind of focus to their content came to sit and listen and see what was going on. You know, they paid their way, come to the event to see these things specifically. They'd come in to sit down to discuss. Straightforward, right? You know, it's a fairly straightforward thing. Well, apparently not so when Anita Sarkeesian, who apparently is quite capable of kind of doing all these things that she says that she dislikes and doesn't want to be involved with or have or be subject to, when she turns around and picks Sargon specifically out of the crowd and attacks him directly. Which, firstly, it's unprofessional and it's ridiculous, and it just shows how thin-skinned she is as well, and how she needs to make it about her and to divert instead of necessarily dealing with it. Because as a result of doing this, because I don't think Anita Sarkeesian is stupid, I think she's potentially kind of deluded if she's very genuinely believing a lot of the things that she comes out with. But at the same time, looking at the way that this has gone down, she was able to completely derail any discussion that was going on and turn it directly into an us versus them thing. And so as a result, there's no content to analyze. It leaves the people in the first two or three rows, however many these guys took over, you've got them either on the back foot or just coming out going, this is ridiculous. But she then can also do the same thing, and especially when the guys at VidCon, Hank Green didn't stand by his kind of code of conduct for the event to the extent that she should have, by the code of conduct, been, at the very least told off for what she did, if not necessarily removed entirely. It shows again a kind of a lack of professionalism from their side as well, and I feel like this is something that I've been looking to talk about for a while. So this week I'll also be doing videos on professionalism, considering that also comes into this stuff. But also I feel like there is another bullying angle here, because after this event there was another panel involving Miss Sarkeesian, which involved the possibly one of the least offensive people on the entire platform, and that was Boogie2988. If you don't know his content, I suggest going to take a look at it, because it's fun, and he genuinely seems to be a very nice guy. And so there was a cyberbullying panel whereby Boogie was there to kind of present with Anita and several others, and both during, in regards to the way that she brought things up, and apparently afterwards where she snapped at him, and even watching Boogie's video where he's like, yeah, well, afterwards she sat down and we talked about it in the green room, and even though she didn't agree with what I was saying, it kind of ended more amicably than purely the negativity that occurred, regardless of how anxious he was or how he tried to make it as open as possible and as unoffensive as possible. And so, on a quick side note, I took a look down some of the comments on Boogie's videos, and I really don't think he deserved some of that. The people who heard him say cis white male as part of what he was saying, and instantly went, "Oh, you're collapsing to these people," and I feel like he was very much just trying to make a point in a way that people could understand it. Sometimes you need to use the terminology the others that you disagree with are using so that they understand the point you were trying to make. But then on top of that, you've got the various other kind of implications on this, and especially on the conference as a whole, but also in regards to Ms. Sarkeesian, the way she conducts herself and her manner, and how she doesn't have a great track record anyway. She demonstrates time and time again that she will make it about her, and that she will kind of spin these things in various ways, and she will be passive aggressive and just plain nasty to either people apparently straight to their face, picking people right out of a crowd, when I would have found it so bizarre and ridiculous because she's on a stage, right, with a lot of lights on her, and the rest of the audience seemed to be quite shadowed. My mind would have been blown, and I would have laughed so fucking hard if it had turned out that she had picked out someone that she thought was Sargon just because she saw other people that she thought she knew as well. If she had picked him out of the crowd and ripped into him when he was just sat there being quiet, and it hadn't been him, then would the situation have been different? I doubt the VidCon guys would have come down hard on her if she had just done that to anyone else. They're not, again, the professionalism, the professional detachment from the situation to treat it objectively relative to their rule set. The lacking professionalism throughout the whole of VidCon just seems to be very pronounced this year, where you've got the what is it, Logan Paul causing a kind of stampede outside, and you've got young kids who obviously don't know any better, insulting security about their uniform, when as if they've got a fucking choice in what they wear. It kind of all panned out to be a bit of a mess, and it was a bit of a mess seemingly all around the same stuff. It was all a lack of professionalism, a lack of care, a lack of kind of intelligent approach to the situations and things, and that's kind of troubling, isn't it? Where you've got this huge platform, and you've got YouTube causing all of these problems for creators, and yet the creators who are most professional, the creators who have come along, done their thing, sorted themselves out, and left, the people who have come along to do a panel or a presentation and who have done the right thing by actively just giving it, regardless of who was in the crowd, and then leaving, those people are just they were there, but then you've got the person who actively does the wrong thing, gets let off, gets more press, gets more support from all manner of different sources, regardless of the fact that the people who were wronged are sat there going, no, seriously, this is what happened, there's video evidence of it, there's a very, very straightforward kind of, not just video, but kind of testimonies from the people that were there, and yet nothing's been done. The wronged party, Mr. Ricard, Mr. Carl Benjamin, he's the one who has kind of been just been pushed away by this for absolutely no reason, when he was just a paying customer, along with all of those other people. It's, as a business, as an organization, as a whatever collective you want to be, you're damaging yourself by not following your own policies, by not being consistent, by not making sense. So that's kind of the way that went, and that's kind of what I wanted to touch on, because again, I've wanted to do a video on professionalism for a while now, and I've not been entirely sure on how to do it, but that'll be coming out later this week, thanks to this and other things that I'm going on to talk about in this month in review actually giving me the inclination to do so. It also gave me a couple of ideas for some other videos that I'm going to go into as well, probably later this week. But going from one group of people who are horribly unprofessional to another, we've got Theresa May. And of course, this was a big month for her. We had the general election, the snap election that she called, whereby it kind of backfired, kind of blew up in her face, because of course you had a lot of people who were sick of her, a lot of people who don't feel that she's capable of following through on Brexit, even if they're in favour of Brexit. A lot of people who realise now that Brexit is a bit of a joke and probably should have never happened in the first place. You've got an awful lot of people who are coming to see all the lies and all the inconsistencies and how me she is about everything, how authoritarian she's become, how negative she is about so many different things, how she won't engage with the little people, the poor people out on the street, because she's so high and mighty and so kind of in with all of her rich buddies. And as a result, with the election, it didn't go well for her, relatively speaking. It left her with a minority government. And I have my criticisms of Jeremy Corbyn as well. Labour not kind of joining together with other people who are arguing for very, very similar things. Not being able to take a step back and actually look at the best thing for the British people rather than themselves. I've said before that the Labour kind of slogan of the party for the many, or whatever it was kind of a joke, because they may say it but they don't show it. Yeah, their manifesto demonstrated that they knew what people kind of wanted and knew how they could maybe get that in there to one extent or another. But then the only reason that there weren't that many negatives in there was because there was just a whole load of stuff that they didn't bother to talk about. And so, yeah, they came out stronger, though. And I feel that UK politics may very well be in a better situation than it was before. I'd agree with that, because we've now got more of a balance between left and right than it was before. And as I've said numerous times in these videos, democracy should be a kind of organised conflict, an organised confrontation that allows for kind of growth from the conflict that transpires. And, that's what we need. Unfortunately, this is where the problems started, because that's where she comes in and she doesn't have majority government, and she's looking for support, and so she signs up with the DUP to one extent or another. Which now, this last week, we've had her coming out and saying that there'll be a monetary agreement where you're going to have about 100 million per Northern Irish constituency being thrown their way, and adding up to quite a very substantial amount of money, which, whether it's justified or not, it's now just going to be there, and it's going to detract from things that the government wants to do, be they things that everybody can agree on or things that they can't agree on. Regardless of what it is, that's now money that the government is losing. And even in general terms, yes, the billion or so pounds that are being sent in that direction are not a vast amount of money in terms of the entire budget. But at the same time, apparently money is so tight that we can't deal with kind of keeping the NHS afloat, so that it's becoming more and more privatised and damaging more and more people's prospects. We can't deal with better organisation or a better kind of set of systems to handle people's welfare, be it social or kind of medical or whatever else. We can't spending money on the renationalising of various things like transport, for instance, or reinvesting in communities is something that couldn't possibly happen until such time as it actually, in this case, seems to suggest that she gets to cling to power for a little longer, in spite of the fact that she has demonstrated that she is in no way suited to it. And then this is where, again, we start falling into more problems with all of this going on, because we've had the unfortunate incident at Grenfell Tower, where we had that huge fire that then has come out, and it's very much a case of between the certain things left over from the previous Labour government that then weren't dealt with by the Conservative government, and in fact were made worse by the Conservative government, that have then continued to roll through. It's meant that every single tower block that has been tested so far has been found to be unsafe, with the cladding and whatever else that they had installed on the premises is not up to any kind of standard for safety, which is why this tower block went up like it did. And as a result, we saw that happen, and in the aftermath of that, you had Theresa May going and seeing the site but not talking to the people. You had her in her very late attempt to try and actually go and talk to the people, running away from it. You've had the people from around that area being, and especially from the tower itself, being banned from kind of public town halls for fear of violence. And it's like, no, these people have been genuinely wronged, and their voices should be heard on this, considering that they are the victims. And yet apparently no one in authority here is willing to do that, least of all being the Prime Minister. And so we've got this huge kind of mess around that situation. And then of course we had another incident where one misguided individual, kind of this time kind of flipping the narrative from the norm, another terrorist who just happened to be a white nationalist drove a van into a group of Muslims who were out praying, essentially, they were either praying or fasting. I'm not entirely sure which. I can't remember off the top of my head. But one way or another, you had a collection of Muslim individuals who were there, and they got hit by a van. Yeah, and yes, to the credit of law enforcement and to the credit of the press involved, he has been labelled a terrorist because he is fucking one. And which, if you looked at the US press, for instance, you wouldn't necessarily see the same thing kind of happening, because of the way that they spin those stories. But to the credit, it was addressed properly over here. But again, though, it's becoming routine. An event like this happens, Theresa May runs off to Cobra, which is the kind of counter-terrorism kind of task force almost that we have over here. She runs off to go and have a chat with them, and then afterwards we are told a lot of stuff, but nothing happens. Yeah, we've got police officials or ex-police officials who have been coming forward and saying that actually, thanks to her time as Home Secretary, thanks to a whole load of other issues that were caused during the last two or the previous Conservative regimes, that have included our current Prime Minister and many of the other ministers that serve alongside her, we have been left in a very insecure position, thanks to the lowering of numbers of police officers and so on and so forth. And so as a result, yeah, okay, we're running into problems with this, but it's the routine, the issue of her just going, oh yes, this thing has happened, and now I'm going to run away, talk to these other people. We will see no real effect from it, and then that will be it done, right? That's I've signed the paperwork, and it's case closed. Yeah, surely that's it, right? And I've said, yeah, okay, we need to make sure that these people who want to disrupt us don't disrupt us. We need to make sure that they're not going to continually cause us to have these pauses, these stops, opening up new targets. We need to make sure that doesn't happen. But at the same time, leaving it just to now become a routine of she goes in, she does this thing, and then she runs away. When she's not actually dealing with the victims, she's not going to talk to the people, she's not going and dealing with it. I mean, you would have thought there would be some PR person somewhere, right? Going, you need to go and do this. Surely that would be the thing to do, right? Because PR is obviously so important. I mean, at least it is if you can't conduct yourself like a decent human being anyway. But as a result, coming in and doing this stuff and trying to spin things one way or another just by going, oh yes, I've had this conversation with these people that you will never see, doing these things that you will never see. It rings hollow. And so it only kind of gets worse from there, as it leaves people upset, it leaves people angry, it leaves people in need, it leaves people feeling hopeless. I mean, there's a reason why in the election, one of the biggest downfalls that she had was having, again, a huge number of very disgruntled, upset, pissed off young voters coming out in force, because we have been, people below the age of 40 have been left behind in an awful lot of ways by the recent developments of politics and the way that our leadership has taken us. And so, yeah, you had an awful lot of people this year going, okay, we've suddenly got this snap election. We've got this thing that's suddenly come out of the blue that maybe we can make a difference with. Let's go make a difference. And so, she didn't account for that. She didn't take that into account at all. She thought it was a thing that she could just walk through and it would be fine. And it's turned out worse for us, to the extent that, again, as I said, she's making all these big errors. She's making herself an even bigger target. She's doing all these stupid things. Her offer to the EU that she's kicked off on over the last week is it just kind of demonstrates the kind of lack of understanding that she has in regards to people's concerns, because Grenfell Tower, she just wouldn't engage with people. The terrorism that's been going on, she's just been kind of going through the motions and leaving it. But then, when you've got her proposal to the EU in regards to her various the various EU citizens and things, and talking about the cut-offs and the way that things are going to work, and being both saying, oh yes, this is the way it's going to work, but then not giving people specifics to work towards, where that she's created this idea, or her and her collective have created this idea of settled status, where people are allowed to live and work and do whatever, claim benefits, etc., within the UK. And then apparently there is no cut-off date that's been decided, but it's sat somewhere between, oh yeah, right, so like this year and 2019, when all of this is supposed to have been kind of finished off. Yeah, that's a great cut-off date. Sometime between now and 2 years down the line, when your lives are going to be impacted by this potentially very quickly. But then you've got apparently families aren't going to be split up, and there's this 5-year specified date that you need to have lived within the UK before you can apply for this, and you can come in and hang around, but there's no guarantee that you're going to get it, and it's a temporary stay that you can have up until that point. But then again, okay, so what are the stipulations on the temporary stay? And there should be no expectation and of being given a permanent residence kind of permission after that, and they've said that they're, because this is going to be a big issue, because you've got millions of people in the UK, like 3.2 potential applicants for this settled status or something like that. They've said, oh yeah, well then we may very well just grant a blanket residence permission for a while whilst we work this stuff out. And it's like, well then what was surely if you can't work out how this is going to work and deal with it effectively as part of the planning and the negotiation, then why even bother giving the extra leeway? If you're literally putting in contingencies purely because you know that it's not good enough already, and that you're not going to be able to handle it already, and so you're just hoping that you can. It's a very odd way of planning and negotiating, and obviously because of the kind of impact of all of this, it's very much come down to, you've got leader of the opposition Jeremy Corbyn coming out and saying that it's not good enough. You've got the chief negotiator Michael Barnier, something like that, coming out and going, well, it's a start maybe, but it is very underwhelming. And it's like, well, yeah, because also how is that going to interact with the people from the UK who are living and working in the EU. You know, they seem to have thought about it one way because it affects here, but they're not thinking about their citizens generally. And there's an awful lot of worry about whether or not those citizens that are living abroad are just going to be her sacrificial lambs that she gets to throw under the bus, just to get her way some more, because that seems to be just what Theresa May wants. And then the last thing I want to touch on in regards to Theresa May getting what she wants. You know, we've heard from her before that she's a bit of a religious nutcase, as much as any of these individuals are. Where the thing that always sticks in my mind about this was when she said that she was asked whether or not she would just drop bombs on people, and she decided to bring God into it, saying that he would give her the strength to go and do so. And apparently not to feel anything from potentially wiping out hundreds of people. And so then, though, we get back onto this stuff with the DUP, who are religious nutjobs, who deny science and who want to argue all manner of points, who are anti-abortion, all the rest of it. And yet now we've got a big collective. I think it's something like 50 odd MPs who are coming in and trying to make a significant deal about abortion in Northern Ireland, because currently abortion in Northern Ireland can only be provided to women who are either at extreme risk of death, or where there's a chance that permanent damage will be done to them as a result of carrying to term. And so as a result, you know, that big kind of deal over there where choice around the life of an individual has to revolve around a clump of cells growing inside them that isn't even a person yet. You know, it's a really troubling thing. And so, you know, having our current Conservative Party being pulled further right by the DUP, who are some of the most horrific people in UK politics at the moment, with some of the things that they believe and that they want to do. You know, now we've got this group putting her under pressure to kind of try and make sure that isn't the case anymore. You know, it's become a bigger deal. It's become a much more prominent thing since this tiny party with a handful of seats has now been granted not just extra funds to do what they wish within their constituencies, but also are essentially the kingmakers, the ones that are supporting the minority government of a poor leader. You know, and so as a result, with this, that pressure's been put on, and we'll just have to see what happens with it, because obviously, you know, any reasonable individual, whether you're left or right, you know, unless you are a true autocrat who wants to or authoritarian who just wants to have people do exactly what you say all of the damn time, then quite frankly, you know, the whole abortion thing should be down to the person whose body it's dealing with. I support the idea of a legal abortion for men to remove themselves, should it be required, or should it be their choice. But at the same time, you know, the physiological effects, the things that require medical attention, should be the pure choice and responsibility of the person whose body it is, right? And so, you know, it's troubling to see some of the responses around this, especially considering that you've got a Prime Minister here who seems to very much more kind of value the power and control that she can have over what's best for the people that put her in the position that she's in. But anyway, after all this miserable stuff about people being crappy leaders, crappy presenters, being unprofessional, being bullies, being childish, whatever, I wanted to get onto a story that actually made me feel good. And it was, we've got Gwyneth Paltrow with her kind of like healthy lifestyle stuff with her company Goop, which again, really weird fucking name for a company that's about kind of health and well-being and hippy-dippy crap that doesn't work. But speaking of hippy-dippy crap that doesn't work, they put out this new product which are healing stickers, quite kind of tastefully advertised here. And they, on their description, they said that it involved NASA technology that channels energies to help you heal. Oh wow, this was great, because people went to NASA and said, did you give them this stuff? And they went, firstly, no, we didn't, and secondly, that's bullshit. Literally BS. And I can't help but feel that this is a win for science, especially considering that they haven't had to necessarily remove the product, because the product's just some stickers. They're not going to do a damn thing. It's a placebo effect bullshit, at the very most. But they had to remove from their website that it involved any technology that had been developed by NASA, anything that that had come from that kind of research and development area. And I feel like this is a win for science. I feel like this is a win for kind of common sense and not listening to silly bullshit, as this was, you know. And it made me just go, do you know what? Maybe there's a small amount of hope for common sense when you've just got some actual people, actual specialists coming out and saying, actually, no, this is ridiculous, and we didn't do it. So, you know, I can only hope for more of that. People who actually take responsibility. As, to be fair, Goop has done, considering that they have been, well, I suppose they were forced to do it, but they have actually gone and taken it away and just had to own up to it. So, you know, we'll again see how far this goes and what the next stupid thing that comes out of this kind of health and well-being area is as we go. But yeah, otherwise, you know, tell me what things that you guys found interesting or troubling or uplifting from the last month down in the comments. And otherwise, thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the video tomorrow. Thank you very much for watching, guys. If you enjoyed this video, then please drop us a like, share this video, and subscribe for more. And I'll see you in the video tomorrow. Take care.